Giant of the Skies is another incredible high point for the Walking With trilogy. It has a really compelling, wonderful, and even tragic story, combined with an exceptionally gorgeous musical score and amazing visuals. It takes place 127 million years ago in the early Cretaceous period, and even from the very start, this episode grips you.
In life, he was the most magnificent beast ever to take to the wing. He ruled the skies supreme, flying far and wide over the lands of the dinosaurs. This is the story of the last journey this giant ever made.
And right after that very poignant intro, we're given another one of the grandest introductions of an animal in the entire trilogy.
But there is one species that dwarfs them all. He is Ornithocheirus, 12 meters from wingtip to wingtip, and a body bigger than a man's. He is the undisputed king of the skies.
The episode begins in Brazil, where we are introduced to the main character, a large male Ornithocheirus, as well as the smaller, more bizarre and unique pterosaur Tapejara that engage in mating rituals. The Ornithocheirus then starts his journey halfway across the world to Cantabria, the mating grounds, as the mating season for Ornithocheirus has also started. His first stop is the southern tip of North America, which is populated by huge herds of iguanodon and an ankylosaur called Polacanthus that travel along with them. However, he meets his first setback shortly after. It rains heavily, leaving him grounded and forcing him to find shelter to keep his wings dry. While he does so, he grooms himself, picking off parasites so he will be in prime condition for mating. Once the rains dissipate, the male Ornithocheirus continues his journey and eventually reaches the Western European islands. But he doesn't rest there, as a group of Utahraptors hunt a larger European species of iguanodon, making for one of the most tense and exhilarating scenes in the series. The Ornithocheirus then travels to the outskirts of a forest to rest, only to be harassed and chased off by Oberomosornis, a Cretaceous genus of bird. Birds are described as feathered dinosaurs that are destined to take over the skies from the pterosaurs tens of millions of years in the future. The male Ornithocheirus eventually arrives at the mating grounds in Cantabria, but he comes to the sad realization that he is no longer the dominant male of his species. His delays and age have taken their toll. He is driven off by younger males and ends up in the outskirts of the mating grounds, not being able to secure a position in the center where all the females are. He dies alone without mating from exhaustion, heat stress, and starvation. His death is slow and agonizing, and is accompanied by the absolute saddest, most heart-wrenching music ever composed. It's an exceedingly somber ending that might even leave you with tears.
Heat, stress, and lack of food have all but killed him. The king of the skies has lost his majesty. His life has run full circle. In his time, he traveled the globe, but death finds him here, in the very same place where he first mated some 40 years ago. On the beach around him are others who lost out in this struggle to reproduce.
In this episode's last 10 seconds are probably the most straight-up bone-chilling moments in a motion picture.
But nature is seldom wasteful. They have become food for the next generation.
This episode's story is masterful from beginning to end. It succeeds in making you actually sympathize with an extinct pterosaur from the Cretaceous period. It's thoroughly engaging, and as the series always does, it does a really great job of showing the majesty of all these animals. Nonetheless, some scientific errors do exist. The main pterosaur focus has actually been assigned to its own genus, Tropiognathus, rather than being classified as a species of Ornithochirus. However, this really isn't an error for the series, as it was classified as a species of Ornithochirus, O. mesembryanus, at the time, so technically it was correct when it was being produced. This is a similar case for two other animals shown in the program: the North American species of Iguanodon, which is now classified under its own genus Dicotyledon, and Tapejara, which is now classified as Tupandactylus. However, both Tropiognathus and Tupandactylus lived as early as 112 million years ago, not 127 million years ago. They lived in the Albian age, not the Barremian. Tropiognathus was also portrayed as being slightly bigger than it actually was, being 8 meters in real life, not 12 meters as the program states, though it was still the largest pterosaur of its time. Like the Liapleurodon from the previous episode, this was due to fragmentary remains that suggested this size, but these remains still remain not formally described. A big error that the series has received huge criticism for is that Utahraptor is shown living in Europe, when, as its name suggests, it lived in Utah. BBC's explanation is that America and Europe were still connected and therefore could have happened, but this is actually incorrect. They had already split off by 127 million years ago. In addition, Polacanthus is shown living in both North America and Europe, when it was exclusive to Europe, though another ankylosaur closely related named Gastonia did live in North America. Utahraptor also lacks feathers, which it most certainly had without a doubt, due to its presence in relatives like Microraptors, Tyrannosaurus, and Velociraptor, which have direct fossil evidence of feathers. The paleontologist consultants even suggested that feathers be added, but would have been more costly. However, there are things about its portrayal that redeem the mistakes. First of all, their general anatomy is actually pretty accurate. In fact, they even acknowledge the fact that dromaeosaurs have really stiff tails that allow them to make sharp turns, something not shown in most media. Second, in the scene with a flock of Iberomessornis, it says that the Utahraptors are closely related to them, which is correct, and actually identifies birds as dinosaurs. Third, they have correct hunting behavior. In reality, the popular notion of dromaeosaurs using their sickle claws to disembowel prey is actually false, as their sickle claw was shaped more like a hook than a blade, which would have made cutting really inefficient. They use it to grab onto their prey or keep them pinned down, which is exactly what they do in the episode. Another thing that is false is the idea that dromaeosaurs hunted in packs, which is extremely wrong. They mostly would have been solitary killers, and if they did hunt in groups, they did it like Komodo dragons, which is called mobbing, in which a bunch of individuals just attack their prey at the same time, rather than having a planned strategy, and they often fight over the carcass after it's killed, both of which the episode shows. On the other hand, packs do not fight over carcasses after killing them, and are much more social and intelligent. Dromaeosaurs like Utahraptors simply weren't intelligent enough to have the social complexity of a wolf pack. And finally, the first hunt actually fails, showing that dromaeosaurs didn't always succeed in their hunts as commonly shown, and that iguanodons weren't nothing but wimpy fodder for the carnivores, but actually tough and formidable hulks. All of the models actually look quite anatomically accurate, the sounds the animals make are very fitting, it once again is flawless animation, and the Ornithochirus animatronic head looks especially convincing. You can even see the eyes actually moving. It fully pulls off the illusion that this is a living, breathing creature. Overall, this episode is superb. It has an excellent story, an astounding soundtrack, and terrific visuals. It's so well made that I can forgive the scientific errors quite easily, especially since its science was still pretty solid for the time it was made, and it gets many things right about dromaeosaurs that most media doesn't. Giant of the Skies sets the bar really high.